Hey, well, welcome to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast Live here, folks. Really good to be back on board with you all, and sorry for the delay of the last 2 days or so. I'm just trying to put together some prep work for future lessons or different subject matters to come in the next few weeks to work with, and just thought I'd take a moment, kind of pull back a little bit and look at some things in terms of interest, and maybe getting some feedback from the audience here, you all the followers, about what to do and what the subject matter might take on in the next few courses or weeks to come here. So, but I think it'd be a lot of fun to just kind of work with very simple things, speed forms. I mean, just kind of a bit of a strange nomenclature, because it's really not going to be a set of forms. I'm going to work more with line weight and begin to transfer that into some transportation design stuff or some mobility studies of some sort. So let's just kind of start with getting into, again, what line weight really begins to look like in terms of putting together just some very simple little studies here, just line. We're going to come back through and sweep through this thing, just kind of get some gestures down, just nice and easy. Then back up on top of that with just a nice little, maybe a tear line inside that. Put a little bit of weight behind this thing. Let it go with that. Just bring this back. A little mistake is great. We can let that kind of play into it. Go through here and just snap this thing back into some sort of a real-time gesture. So notice, again, I'm not really thinking in terms of vehicle. I'm just looking at emotions, for example. What kind of sway lines are we dealing with? What kind of weights are we looking at? This shadow, sometimes this really connotes a lot of depth or change of section in these things. Like kicking it back, we'll apply these in just a few moments here. So there's one approach, and another little approach here might go in the other way, just kind of swing it back in reverse. Same basic sway line, start back here with a nice little process here, a little circle of perspective, and turn it back. And again, put that same shadow line in place here. Just a little bit of depth, nice and easy. Stretch it just a bit more. A little more weight in this thing. Come back and go negative with it. Now come back the other way and just kind of kick this thing into a certain series of abstractions here. And maybe you were there. Just a little bit of hook in it. Notice again, just a little bit of change of pace, just form, just line weights. And let that kind of express itself. There's one or two variations in line here. Again, not really concentrating on car, but more mobility. How do we begin to apply this? We'll show you that in just a few moments here. Again, now looking at the spark, and then we would come the other way. We would come up on top with this line, and then snap it back and reverse it. And on top of that, that same kind of deep gesture line. Come back and put a bit of shadow to it. And notice they begin to imply certain things visually. And again, let's kind of kick this back the other way. There it is, like so. And just kick it back. And again, the weight change here as well, just as we transfer this back. A little bit of thickness there. Notice there's a lot of energy in those lines, and there's a lot of complication in some cases. Very simplistic, but nonetheless, it begins to tell a story about maybe the gesture is just enough to kind of get the work done here. And again, a speed form system here can be a variety of things, but I think the most significant thing about the speed form study itself is you're not really conscious of trying to think in terms of what an automobile or a mobility study would look like. You're looking for an emotional form or something to kind of dig into and begin to put the application towards. So let me just sharpen this stick for a moment here and carry on with this whole process. Let's go back in and go just one more little, let's go back to that same sway line here. Let's kind of change the snap. A lot up front and a very quick abrupt return right there. Let's go back in through here. And a quick, very abrupt return. There it is there. I'll come back in and I'll come underneath with this thing. Maybe it's more of this. A little bit of recess. And up on top, might be just a nice little counter line. Again, all predicated on just very simple emotions. Weight change. I think that's one of the nice things about the whole process and putting together sketches like this, where you go into an ethereal process of putting together formats. It's interesting to note how these things begin to transfer themselves into what if we did this, and what if we tried that, or what if we switched it, what if we turned it upside down. For example, if you do turn it upside down, all of a sudden you get a whole different set of lexicons to work with. So it's a very fluid approach to problem solving, but at the same time opens up a lot of opportunity for doing some very unique and new things to develop and so forth. So let's take a look at these guys and see what happens if we take this and go another route here. And I get this broke the lead. There we go. We're back at it here. Just going to bring this into play a little bit more. Let's go back and get a sheet of paper here and say, all right, let's see. What if we took one of these guys and just did a quick overlay here and just got a gesture started? Let's see what happens here. We get to put this into place. Let's say we take this guy, what we started with, overlay it. Just get some lines in place. We brought this back, and we brought this back. So what if we took up on that and begin to just look at this? Get on a ground line. Bit of surface work. Take that downhill a bit. Show a bit of far side wheel. Find where our perspective center is going to be. A little bit of lamping, maybe. And there's that. That ground line down again. Show a little bit of that far side wheel. A little more depth to it. Open that up just a touch. A little bit of tone into this thing. Just working with a Prismacolor pencil. There's some just really fast little speed form studies, and begin to transfer them into some sort of a shape vocabulary. Coupe, sedan, whatever it might be, and then just a little bit of tone to this thing. What's it doing surface-wise? Takes very little. Once you get that down, again, center line. Same kind of energy up front. Center line. Draw through it. A little bit of shadow where it's going to fall. Those same spears to work there. And there's a little form study there based off of that one line study we did right there. So that's a bit of an interpretation. Let's kind of line these up a little bit here. There's phase one. There's the line study we did. I'm transferring that and putting a couple of changes here in terms of putting together the form up on top of this. But nonetheless, there's phase one here. Let's kind of go back and look at another couple of series here. We just really begin to look at some neat stuff here. Now I keep sharpening my pencil. It's time to switch gears and go to another stronger lead here. Going to put that off to one side, pick up another pencil here. Let's go back and maybe look at some of these guys here. Let's look at this second one here. Let's kind of reverse the status here just a bit. Get that same shape to work. Come out of it, draw through it just a touch. Get that big accentuated circle. Place, there it is. There it is. just to kind of connect the dots here. Bit of tone in through here. Same thing through here. And let's get that far side geometry in place here. Kind of neat. Open that up just a touch. Again, the whole purpose of the exercise is to really begin to develop with empathy or speed form line weights, how to develop maybe new shape and surface work here. Let's kind of put some background in this guy, just put a little bit of depth to it. There it is there. A little bit of a touch. Bring that into play. Let's put a bit of depth in this thing too, a little bit of surface work. And again, back in through here. Line weight again, thick, back to thin. Drawing through this stuff, right where the hub is. Just very simplistic. Now looking at shape, and how it begins to just form together. We're looking at these line weights. Hey, Kawan 170, that looks fast. Hey, how you doing, Kawan? Good to have you on board here. Thank you for joining me here. I'm just going to go through, as I said in the intro of the actual piece itself, the stream, going into some form studies or just speed form shapes, using line weight as a source to kind of develop some things here. So just in case you just joined us here, I went ahead and put together some just very quick line studies, first of all. Not really concentrating on vehicle or operation of form, etc. Just looking at certain shapes in line form, thicks and thins, and begin to transfer that into empathy of transferring it into some architecture, some mobility studies. So the first one I did was off of this form right here, our line study, and that became that process there. This one transferred into that one, and then all of a sudden we came back in the second one, looking at this very in the lineup here, that same process. This one became that one. So if we kind of cover them up here, there they are. That guy transfers into this. So we're looking at just ways of developing certain shape and form here, coming off of these empathy studies. So let me just put this back here for a second here. But a nice to have you on board here. Come on, where are you located, by the way? Thank you so much for joining us. This is really cool to have you on board. Awesome, man, that's neat stuff. So what do you think so far? And whereabouts are you located? So I can just kind of concentrate on the conversation with you here just for a bit. Let's put a little bit of that NASA scoop up on top here. And again, just thick and thin. Line weight. Let's go back and get this rear wheel established here. Find the center line, poke that through. Then we'll come back into that hub area here and do the same thing. We'll just draw through this guy, show us where the wheels are in terms of reference here. There it is. And there it is. And there it is. Let's come back in and put a bit of weight in this little tear line in the surface here. Just gonna get that set. A little thick and thin, coming out of that shape. We got a little bit of underbody. Let's put more tone in this underbody here. Now notice how that all comes together very quickly here. Line weight, really important process in this whole speed form development study here. Line weight is everything. Once you begin to generate that, it's going to be a little lamping study over the top of that wheel. There it is. And back into here, let's kind of cross-reference this. A little bit of tone change there. So there's just a nice series of what I refer to as like Speed form line weight study, just working with line, getting it all to kind of come together. There you are. There's phase 2. You're in Spain. Oh, very good. Well, thank you so much for joining me here. It's really an honor to have you on board. And I think the real treat of this whole process is getting to meet people like yourself who are interested in getting into drawing skills and the like. And today's lesson was more of just getting away from drawing the car or the vehicle as is and being very structured. We're looking more of an emotional look at getting shapes to work and putting that into practice here. Let's just put those aside for a second here. Let me get a fresh sheet of paper here, and we'll go from there. Come on, very interesting. So here's another one. Let's go back and look at this guy here, this third one. Let's get a little bit more abstract with this stuff. See what happens when we do this. Let's pick this guy up right here and overlay it just a bit here. We'll get this started. Let's do this. Let's come back in, pick this up, pick that up, and again. Just get the basic gesture down. Let's just come off of this thing, really. Establish a ground line. More line, a little bit of sticky cockpit area here. A bit of tone change. Again, come on, this is interesting. Is this making any sense to you? Is this helping? I don't know, what's your discipline? You're part of, that's, hey, Margus, pretty spooky. Hey, there you go, Jeff, how's everything? Come on, if you're still with me, is this making sense to you? We're just looking at different variations on themes. That'll go through some just line weight studies and begin to put that into practice in terms of not being, quote, car related, but getting into some really interesting shape studies here. So let's just kind of go back and put a little more tone in this thing, and we'll wrap it up and go into another set here. Just getting a real low profile coupe here. Just getting a pretty spooky uprun this thing. It's good to have you on board, Jeff. Hope all is well with you. And there it is there. Just kind of get those wheels squared away here. Not too lucid. Just got to bring this back in here. Let's put a toner in it. Just got a bit of shadow in this guy. That helps get that outrigger to read through here. Again, very simple forms, but again, electrifying in terms of learning how to see certain things that might not be practical. And we're not looking for practicality here, by the way, too, but I'm at it. What we're looking for is just expressive shapes to begin to transfer into form studies for mobility machines, whether it's automobile, could be autonomous, could be taxi services, who knows? Just a whole variety of different things to work with here. So come on, if you're still there, how can I help you? Any questions at all so far? Is this making sense? I can't thank you. And hey, Chip, so how are you? Kazoo noises. Good to have you on board, Chip. Just want to make a quick announcement here. I'm very sorry for the silence over the last couple of days. I just kind of pulled back a little bit and began to take a look at some inventory in terms of what to move into. Maybe some lesson plans to come forward in time to come and what to work with. So it's good to be back on board today, Chip, and it's good to have you with us. And Kawan as well. So Kawan, I would love to have you follow my program here. I'm on the air every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. And boy, I'd love to have you be a follower of mine. It'd be great to have you on board to kind of work you through some things here. So again, just very simple empathic studies here. Let's go back and let's get this. That one is a relationship of this guy to this guy. So again, we're looking at speed, form, and line and trying to transfer that into some sort of mobility concept without changing too much the character of the lines we're establishing. It all comes down to beginning to see and perceive a different culture or a different way to see shape and form. I've always believed that the good form studies or good sketch rendering skills or good line weight studies, especially line weight studies, begin to open up the door in terms of what's relative, what's really important, what's not, what's subordinate, what's dominant, and all these elements come together to create some really unique things in terms of developing shape and form here. So let's kind of use this last guy here. Let me do a little quickly an overlay here. Let's do this. Back in through here and just get the basic gesture down. Long span, rear kick, into this, another span, into return. And there's the basic gesture we started with right there. So right away, we can come up here and say, okay, maybe it's this. Let's change the weights here just a bit. Maybe it's an old Rolls bustle back. We add that to it. That's kind of fun. Just interesting to kind of put this all together. Let's put the old Wing Victory up on top there. Lady Victory sitting on top. Let's just truncate this thing and really kind of give it the, maybe it's a little Rolls return here. Maybe not a severe, maybe just a nice sharp little return here. This into this. Let's pant the rear wheel so it's all closed off. That comes back in and kicks into itself. Very long sloping upper. Very traditional, and at the same time, hopefully exciting. That ground line down. Let's get this out of the way here so it's not confusing the situation. Hey, Chip, put the passenger in the trunk seat. Like old times. That's right. That's the old Rolls-Royce bustle back, Chip, where you actually kind of kick that little bustle back out of there. Forms a trunk line, takes us into that, and let's kind of kick this back just a bit more. There it is there. A bit of reverse the backside tire. Kind of give it some depth. Let's roll that out of it. So return in through here. A little bit of surface work up on top there. Take that right through the shape. Very long, sweeping, very long bow line going through this guy, and just keeping it nice and fluid and not worrying about just, is it perfect? No, not at all. We're not asking for that. And just let's come off of this line here. Just a bit of counterpoint off that, balance it off the back side of this guy. More of a fan blade here. Just kick a few of those guys in place. Just enough to imply where the surfaces are. Little kick over the top of that hood. That's kind of interesting. Little mask over the top of that. That little bit of a bustle back. And down to the ground line. Just run it right through it. Just really low slung, big, long, formal sedan. And there you go, guys, looking awesome already. Hey, Chip, it's just fun to take these things and just roll with it. And again, this all started, let me go back and just review here. This all started with a whole family of surfaces here in terms of just looking at line. I think oftentimes we get so caught up in trying to develop the right front three-quarter, the right tire size, the right belt line, the right upper, the right graphics, and so forth. And I understand it. I think that's important, but I think it's also really, really very, very essentially important to sometimes put all that aside and just look at line and begin to look at transferring that line into some sort of a new exotic or a new form or a new benchmark, a new approach to thinking in terms of trans or mobility studies. So important. Let me sharpen this up just a bit here. Let me stop there. Any Jeff or Chip, any conversation here, any input? And Kawan, especially from Spain, I really appreciate you. I hope you're still with us. So anybody, any comments at all so far? These are very just simple gestures, looking at how the whole process comes together here. So there's one. Here's how we started. There's page one of these guys. We started with this. We're going to do a quick review here. Started with it's a series of 4 very quick line studies. There it is. Just A, B, C, and D. What do you do with those things? What kind of weights are we looking at? How do you transfer that? Where do you place the package lines? That's all part of the emotional experience of being able to take the right. Oh, hey, thanks very much, Chip. I appreciate. I really appreciate the conversation here and the comment. Thank you. Likewise to you as well. But I think it comes down to just looking at at being so tuned in to being aware of the newness factor that you begin to see things differently. And again, that's nothing magical. That's just part of the practice of being able to transfer into the emotional side and the practical side. And we work back and forth together. So it begins to create some really interesting stuff here. So let's go back and continue on here. Let's go back and begin to say, all right, there's one. That's where we started. That was over here. Let's get this right now. That was the first set of sketches done from that batch where you just looked at different packaging from certain lines and so forth and putting it together. Phase 2, bringing everything full forward, much more of a sport two-place, and then from there into getting a little bit more exotic with it, maybe lowering the whole platform and expanding it a little bit more and getting some more luxurious. I mean, that can be a lot of fun. I'm not in love with this part of it, but if you hide that, all of a sudden you get some pretty interesting shapes where you get the tension coming from different lines, and I think that's really cool. That's what gives us this whole idea of what I refer to as like form studies or speed form studies, some real punch, because you're not concerned about being pretty. You're concerned about being new, concerned about, well, what if this magically happens here? How cool is that thing coming past? So those are the 2. Just going to put those away here for a moment. Let's go back and get a fresh sheet of paper here again. Pardon me, I moved some things around on the pad. Let's get some fresh sticks here. Let's go back and be a little more practical. Let's go the other way. Working with the same set of lines we've dealt with here. For example, let me pull this back up. I'm sorry for the confusion here. Looking at the same kind of lines here, we sketched them in that form. Hey, the real Shadowkin, how you doing, Chief? Boy, oh boy, Starship Nemo. Hey, Doc, how are you? Good to have you on board. No, don't be sorry at all, and Nemo. It's great to have you on board. I hope you're doing well. And Shadow, thank you so much. I know you guys are busy, but I'm back on board today, and boys, it's great fun to be back on board with doing some little speed form studies here, taking advantage of getting. I don't know if you saw it or not, but we started with these sketches or not. It started. Then we went down. Let me just give it again a real quick review. We went from that into, for example, this first pass here, that first line study, we're going to produce this. Then we went to the second one, which is this guy here, and began to produce this little sport coupe out of that process. So that was phase 2. Then we went to right down the line there with all these sketches. We went to the third phase. This guy transferred into this guy. And again, get a little more exotic as we went down the line here. And then the last study we did was this study here. We're taking the belt line. Let's just do this. Taking the belt line down and running it through, for example, getting this into that transfer. So again, the whole purpose of today's stream is so hard to push the wheels to the corners and keep it aerodynamic. Yeah, you're right. That's exactly correct. But again, the purpose of the stream is to look at lines in terms of weights, thicks and thins, and begin to transfer those weights into certain things in terms of aspects of just good old-fashioned design work here. So let's do this. Let's go back the other way. Let's go back and say, all right, let's start with the ground base here. Same thing. I'm going to use line weight to establish surface work. Come back in through here, up on top. But that's that basic sway line. Let's not move too far away from that, but let's reverse it. little larger with it. Let's come back and round it off. Let's go back and teardrop it. Let's take that line right on through and not stop it and kick it, maybe about right there. Now let's go back and get this into place. Let's take that line way back. Not a problem. We'll just take that little line right there and just kick it over the top, get a little arrow bump right there. And all of a sudden, let's take that in and kick that through. Get that backside wheel in again. Get more depth. Take it out of there. More crown in that glass. So let's kind of get that place in there. Just kind of crown that through just a bit. That's really part of that line. Remember to turn this upside down for a moment here. Get a little bit of line thrust in this guy. Back side, right side up again. All right, there you think, gang? There it is. A little study here based on just some nice romantic little, just really interesting little formal stuff here. Again, that all came out of, I'm sorry to go back and forth here, gang. That all came out of these language studies here. They're basically in the same basic shape. We're kind of moving it around a little bit, but we're just variations on theme that begin to push the envelope a little bit and give us a little more newness here. So what do you think there, gang? Is this making sense so far? And the whole, again, the reason I'm asking the question about making sense is that we get so caught up sometimes about trying to be so perfect it becomes caustic. That's just not the process you want to involve yourself in. You want to involve yourself in is being very intuitive, very open to a lot of things that are taking place. Even the mistakes you make become miracles. That's the key thing about this whole process of line weight and speed forms. Bugatti water drop. Yeah, that's a good idea, Chip. I like that. I didn't even see that. You're right, with the big Bugatti insert piece and glass line and belt line. Yeah, cool. So we can get a little more formal with that. That'd be kind of fun. So let's go back here and look at a few more studies here of what we've got here. Let's go back and be a little more less romantic. Let's just do this. What if I took a line and just did that with it? Just opened it up. Stop one there. I come back in behind it. Just change a little bit of the weight and kind of pinched in on it. Leave a little bit of airspace there. So again, a little more speed in the weight of the line. Let's put a little bit of thickness into this thing so it kind of changes the tempo of the weight of the line. Drop it back into almost the vapor. There it is. So thin, the thick, back to thin again. All begin to predicate. Now let's counterbalance that. Let's do this. Let's come back in again and say, what if I come back off of this and just begin to develop a little bit of a half round? Let's do this. Oh, that's interesting. Nothing there. But again, same weight, no weight. Let's put a little bit of reverse on that. Let's put a little bit of weight up front here. And kind of crank that through. And again, notice, but I'm going to stop here for a moment. Notice the rhythm change in these lines. For example, you've got a lot of thin to thick, increasing the tempo, slowing the tempo down, increasing the tempo, slowing it down, increasing the tempo. That's all part of the rationale behind saying this. Hey, David, hey, Dr. C from an old Columbus classmate. Hey, hi, David, how are you? I remember David Pinter. How have you been, David? Just great to have you on board. You're not an old Columbus classmate. You're a fresh new face on the program here. I hope you join me, and I hope you follow me. It'd be great. I've been out of town the last couple of days here, just kind of prepping some things and putting my head together in terms of where I want to take this thing and new lesson plans and the like. But boy, Dave, it's good to have you on board here. Super. Let me any question. Ooh, that's okay. Does this make sense? Again, folks, now there's one approach to it right there. Let's do a couple more line studies here. Let's go change gears. Again, notice I mentioned a conversation about tempo change. Tempo to me is a lot of very interest. Dave Pinter, how's it going? Hey, Dave. So the tempo change is extremely significant. Tempo is everything in line weight studies. Thick and thin. It shows distance. It gives you perspective. It gives you scale. It gives you a sense of acceleration, deceleration. All these elements are all part of the process. And by the way, based on that, I'm going to go into next week. I might put together, I have been working on this, but I just don't want to reveal it yet. Maybe today's a good time to do that. I'm going to go back and start next week with a whole series of lesson plans on very simple things that will make a difference in our sketches. Mine too. I'm still learning like you are. There's no way in the world that I'm really happy with the fact that, boy, have I arrived. No, I haven't. I'm still waiting in the station, holding the baggage, ready to move on. So I'm sure you are as well. So stay tuned. And if you're not following me, please do follow. Send a word out there that you are available to work with here. And some great, exciting things are going to come about in the next few weeks or so. So let me put this sharpened stick together here. Let's go back in and do a couple more. Let's go back and reverse this. What if I did this and round it back? And it came back in and just came underneath it. Again, weight change. A lot of thick. Back to thin. Same process again. Weight change. Thick. Back to thin. Counterpoint. Not much there. And the intention is to not have much there. It's our task to go back in. Now, student, hey, that's great. Ladislas. Hey, hello, Ladislas. Good to have you on board again. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been fun. Stepping back a little bit and getting into some good old-fashioned basic drawing principles. I mean, there's nothing more exciting than just getting a stick in your hand and going through the process of saying, hey, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this is a mistake? Great. If it's a mistake, look at it from this point of view. It's not a mistake. It's a miracle waiting to happen. Just adjust as you go here. So let's go back and look. There are a couple of gestures again. Again, I refer to these as nothing more than speed form line studies. They're not looking at shape. We're not going to analyze section. We're just going to look at ways to develop this stuff. Just interesting in terms of how to be able to take a line and transfer it into some sort of product architecture. It works universally. Today we're just working with mobility systems. I got a note here from David Pinter. Let's see, you've been meeting Didn't see. Nope. Yeah. Hey, let's look at that. If we put it upside down, how cool is that? Ooh, that's going to be interesting. That's neat. So is this. So we'll get back in a minute here. I'm going to address David's concern here. Been meaning to catch a stream. Been helping Tiffany and Company for the past few years. Rewatched a few streams on YouTube, waiting for the collab with Scott Robertson. Hey, that's great. Good to have you on board, David. And again, it's just nice to have you on board. So great stuff. Nemo, you still there? Hope this is making sense for you here. So let me go back here and reverse this thing. Again, this line works. Again, those are line studies. Let's begin to look at this. What happens when you begin to take it a step further? Let's take those two pieces and do this. What if I took that same line and said, all right, I'm going to come back in and develop that first slope by doing this. Come across, pick it up, and then drop it. There's A. Now let's change the weights, just like we did. And just drop it in. Very lightly first, just to get it. Now let's counterpoint that with something that's really close by. Let's come back in and say, all right, what if I did this? Let's kind of hug it together, open it up, and then drop it in again. And now let's go back a little bit more thickness in terms of what if I counterpoint that with this? I'm looking behind this thing. Again, change the weights. Thick, acceleration, deceleration. Again, let me turn this upside down for a moment here. Accelerate it, decelerate it. There I am. There's 3 lines right there. I'm working with the 3 lines. Now, what if I come back in and say, what if I kind of drop this just a bit? What if I drop that just a bit? What if I kept that line in tow here and came out of this line with this? Just a simple baseline. I've got a lot of elements there to work with there, right? So let's go back and drop this off. Let's pick up this. Kick it back. Kick it back. Now let's come down the ground line. Look how that set up a proportion for me. Really cool. Now let's get the wheels out here. There it is there. Let's step that back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 back. Look at how gesturely this is. But again, look, it's a very simple, elegant form. I mean, there's nothing to it, but it's there, I hope. There's a great sayings. Hey, wow, that's a really prankster. Yeah. Moar missiles. You guys were, hey, hi, Jeff. Good corrupt JD's chat. Hope you're well. Yeah, very cool, gang. So here we go. Let's kind of carry on here for just a bit. Let's put a tone in here. Here's phase 1. Just going to put a little more weight in this base down below. Let's take this line through. Gives it a little kick up, or a little bit of an intake piece. There it is. Oh, this is slick. Let's do this. Pardon my silence, gang. I'm just trying to get some line weights in place here. A little bit of return. touch more return here of the cowl. Nope, not seen. There I am. Real lucid, nice and easy. Put it upside down for a bit here. That piece to work. Let's take that same approach. Let's see if we can kind of clear this. There we are. Let's make this work for us here. Remember that little conversation we had a moment ago about miracles and mistakes? Line went through, just turned it into a background area. Just drop it off right there, and there you are, gang. Just interesting, like the BMW that has no more windows. Yeah, no more windows. That's it. Got it. So let's go back in through here. Move the ground line down. Let me stop there for a second, gang. Is this helping to make sense at all? Let's look at this guy just for a moment here. This is an intriguing little form study here. This guy right here is interesting. So we came up with, let's put that, if we can get that on the screen. There we are. We use that same process. This guy right here. What if we got this and came in and said, all right, we have this, doing this. That kicks back, a little more line weight on top here. Let's get that all lightly put in. Then we have a counterpoint line that does this. You have another line underneath that does that. Yeah, that's interesting. Let's see what happens there. There's the start. Now here's the redundant portion over here. Let's kind of do this. That's doing that. Yeah, that kind of comes through. Okay, let's put that aside for a moment. And let's do this. Pick up the weights, pick up the counterpoint, which is right here. End it right there. Move that swallowtail into it. Take this through. Then some surface. Turn this upside down for a moment here. Counterpoint. Upside down. Right side up. Real quick and dirty, get the job done. come back and look at the empathy that you've created or the form you've started and go from there. Again, a little bit of background and knock off the lights and darks. Expose real wheel. Let's kind of tick this in here. Tell the viewer that tucks right back in a little port here, a little intake. Several ways of finding newness. What do you think there, gang? Pardon me as I reach across here. Hey, chip 7, that carries its own background. Cool, yeah, there you go. Let's get this out of the way here, guys. So there you are. There's another couple of studies here and looking at just what's taking place in terms of just getting, again, the whole idea of today's stream is to really concentrate on getting line weight to work for us. And this is what helps us do this. Looking at new ways of expressing shape and form. Is it a way to kind of work all the time? No, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but sometimes when you get into a corner and things begin to repeat themselves and they get over and over and over again, just interesting things happen when you begin to break out of that and say, you know what, I'm just going to go through a series of line studies here and really begin to look at what if I just push one or two lines together and let this work. Pardon me, I just noticed a huge hollow in that line. Don't like that a bit. There it is. That's better. All right, so there we are, just to kind of break it a bit more. So let's carry on here for just a second. And what if we just did this? Let me get a fresh sheet of paper here, gang. Again, all started with a series of lines that look like this. And again, I'm sorry to bring this back, but we started looking at just speed forms lines. What do you do with weights? How do you begin to work with those weights? What begins to transfer with those weights? So let's kind of do this. Let's go back in here and say, all right, let's go back and say, okay, let's start there, and let's start there. Let's come back in again. Same line. I'm trying to work with the same process, looking at a variety of different ways to look here, or get looks out of this thing. Now, what if I come back in again and say, all right, what if I did this? And what if I brought that right through? Ah, interesting. What if I now did this? I drop this off just a bit. Let's get a little crisper with this thing. Now, maybe I take that out and it becomes a bonnet. In between, a little bit of a sway line. Counterpointed. Connect the dots. Ooh, interesting. Look at that. How cool is that? Fun stuff, huh? Again, it starts out with that same basic line. I haven't deviated too much from this guy right here. Just trying to work all the systems around that same sway line, that same lazy kind of OG curve that kind of develops interesting things. It just, again, you just let it drop in. A vertical and a vertical. Now let's come back in and ground it. Maybe just enough of the wheels are showing here. So this might break into a lamping study here. There's a headlamp structure up on the shoulder. Now you see how that one little line added the newness factor there? And without going there, it really begins to kind of hampers us a bit. So let's kind of go back in through here. And let's go positive and negative. Let's get the line weights to work. Thick into thin into weight change. Rearview mirror reflected. I mean, look at how simple that is, but yet it's all a product of just interesting how, again, speed forms or line weight does the work for us. If we're not pushing it and not trying to force it, it does some very intriguing things. So let's do this. Let's get a ground line established here. And again, let's put this back into it. Let's kick this hip up a little higher. Oh, look at that little change of pace there. Front lamp, accident line, lamp assembly. all of a sudden, newness in terms, it's not the greatest, it's not an earth-breaking science, but nonetheless, it opens up some really cool doors in terms of not being so predictable. That's the great thing about line weight. And again, doing speed forms like this, it's unpredictable, which is where you want to live. The unpredictability is what gives it excitement. And we become so methodical and so cautious, we paralyze ourselves. The purpose of the stream today is not to paralyze us, but to open us up, to really begin to see in terms of, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make, sometimes sketches will not make sense. Sometimes it'll be silly, but that's all right. You're learning how to go through the process. I'm learning how to go through the process. This is a learning cycle for me. I don't have any answers. I never had the answers. I'm still exploring like you are. So let's go back in through here. Let's just kind of plant this thing and not worry about anything else other than just getting this established. Let's do this line weight. Let's get that into place. Let's kick it in through here and let it go at that. A little bit of a weight change up here, a little bit of highlight, and just kind of sneak that through. Just a little bit interesting thing. Just adding little bits of flavor to the sketch. Thick. Again, accelerate it, lose it, which means it goes deeper here. That weight change is telling me right into here that is deeper, and it goes back to normal surface. It kind of comes forward. That's the intrigue about getting into the whole idea of just interesting how it all comes together with the whole idea of just putting it pieces together without being predictable here. So let's kind of do this. Imply where the wheels might fall. A little more of a sharp definition here in terms of shadow. And there it is, gang. Now it's all said and done. Again, with line weights. And there's a little 3/4 perspective. There it is, gang. What do you think? Here we are, space car. Let's see, it's looking sweet. Hey, chippers. And we got here. We got to pick up a couple of questions here. Love those separated side pods. Yeah, we're just going to open them up a little bit. And that's a variation on the theme. It's not quite the same spring line here, but kind of open this up just a bit. That'll roll back in. But I just wanted to take a little bit of a variation on that same thing. We come right back through and just develop a little bit of a shape here. Put that in a bit of a 3/4 front perspective so we can take a look at it here. Let's see. If I have any question, kazoo noises coming down. I have a phone call. Guess we need to get this desk mic some. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. It could be a spaceship, or a space car, patent pending, Batmobile. Yeah, that's not bad. Not a bad one either. Yeah, it's good to have you on board, Nemo, and it's so good that you're with us here today. So, that is really cool from that 3/4. It's a variation from that shape shadow into this 3/4 front. But I thought we'd just kind of take a moment and end it with that today. And let's go back and do a little bit of a review. So we started here. And we went to phase 1 was this set of sketches. Let's line them up here. And then the second pass was there. The third pass was here. Third pass was here. And we'll go through a real quick review. So let's see, this is where it all started. Where it all started was right there. I mean, it's so important to stress, again, that this whole lineup was not really predicted. It was just, what if I just lay down fixing things? I would have never saw that shape from the side. Yeah, changes an awful lot in perspective. And again, that was a variation too, Shadow, so let's keep that in mind as well. So, but again, in review here, look at what we did here. We started with a series of just strike lines. I refer to like thick and thins, acceleration and deceleration lines. That's how we got it started. So we went from there and we picked out a couple of pieces and began to translate that into what happens if you begin to put that in some sort of a package lineup where a certain span or a wheelbase setup. So here was sketch 1, sketch 2, and they came out of these passes here. That guy became that guy. This second sketch became this study, and we'll come right down the pike here. There's the first pass we did. Then we moved over to these. And that picked up on the same set of circumstances. This one, let's do this here for what it's worth. This guy came out of that strike right there. So that was a relationship coming back up and picking that up a little bit to work with. Then the last one was this one, and we looked at it that way. There's the almost a translation of getting that strike line to come back a little bit, change a little bit of the weights here, obviously. We got more of a real formal luxury looking sedan here. So that was the second pass we did. Then we went to this, which is another pass at them, just looking at almost a very, very fluid line. Again, working off of the same basic shape to deal with here. What do you do with that certain rhythm, and how do you work with it, etc.? Man, that one was a monster. Like the lines are flowing, yeah, slung and low. Yeah, they're really sneaky looking. This one, you're referring to this one right here, Shadow? That was the intent, to get that thing really down deep and dirty. Just real low slung, very different looking at the daylight opening. So that was that guy. Then we went to this study where we just laid down a couple of empathic lines here. Then we took this study right here, began to look at these. That became this one. Pardon me, sorry you can't see it here. This one here, if I can get this to work, this study here became this translation here. And then all of a sudden we got to the last one here was this little swallowtail thing became this guy, became that guy. So look at the transference we're making here. It's just all interesting to kind of put together the pieces in terms of what happens when you let things go to the point of just being very ethereal, extremely lucid, not quite controlled. And I think that's a real big part of the creative process, to let that mind go into areas that it's risky, yeah, extremely risky, but it's worth the risk because you begin to learn some things about the sketch rendering development side of life and how to work with it. So last but not least, there's a little study here, and we just took a couple of lines and developed a nice simple little form study off of that, just very interesting gestures, getting this whole thing to kind of lean forward and kind of hip, high rear, low front end, and again, making some little adjustments up front to get this cowl or this barge board system to work with, and then adding a little bit of a positive and negative shot here in the side form, and then doing a little translation, change of pace and perspective of what that might look like when you go the other way into the 3/4 front. Just changing some things around. Just really interesting. So I really want to thank everybody here for taking the time here to be with me today. Let's go back to that original study. And if you have any, especially if the gentleman from Spain is still with me here, Kawan, if you're still there, there. I really would appreciate any comment from you in terms of what you've seen here today. I'm really pleased you've been able to join in, and I'd love to have you become part of my followership here. So please feel free to do so at your convenience. I would love to have that process come together. If you're interested in drawing programs, for example, I've got a very interesting format out there in the digital format for drawing lessons. It's called Dr. Contrast, drcontrast.com. You can go there and pick up some basic lessons, 9 lessons on everything from perspective right through shading and surface development work. So please take a look at that if you're interested. And again, cannot thank you enough, all of you, for joining in, especially Shadow. Good to see you. Looking forward to, hopefully, if you're in tomorrow, we'll kind of touch base on some things here. And really looking forward to it, gang. So to Jeff, Chip, Nemo, everyone else on board here, boy, I really appreciate the time, gang. So thank you so much. And I will sign off with this because I think it's extremely important. Always never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks for the time, gang. This has really been a lot of fun, and hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. And and one last comment too. If you're interested at all in certain things that you want to pick up on, or pardon me, to learn or to get more information on, please feel free to drop me a note at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. Looking forward to hearing from you. And again, all that to say, thank you so much. Hope you have a great weekend. And again, dare to be great, because you are. Take care, gang. Thanks again. See you on Tuesday of next week with another set of circumstances to work through here. So thank you. All the best, gang.